Good evening, Rowan. It's the 18th of January 2016 and it's about 1:30, and I'm making this video this evening, as you'll guess, to reassure you I haven't been seducing any priests over the weekend. I did have a word with my pet priest who's in my wardrobe so that he can spend half of the day in Narnia with you, to ask him if it's a sin to tell the truth in the Catholic Church, and he said, oh no, that's just the Church of England. So I said, oh well, that's what I thought, so I'm just going to carry on as I am, whatever comments you make on my YouTube channel or anywhere else, I shall be carrying on. So I thought we could have another talk this evening about poverty and your stupidity. Because I thought that there must be lots of people feeling left out because they might think that you're only superior to poor people and working class people. But actually I want to reassure everybody that you're actually superior to absolutely everybody, aren't you? And to illustrate this, I'm going to show some clips of a video that you made on the occasion of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. Now this is a very important video that you've made. I can tell that because you're wearing your purple cassock. You only wear your purple cassock on special occasions when you want to emphasise your status and importance. And the rest of the time you dress in your black cassock so you can try and fool everybody into thinking that you're an Orthodox patriarch, and that's why you've got a beard as well. But sometimes, you know, some of the videos that you make, your cassock actually changes colour during the course of the video, even though you're trying to pretend that all the film has been shot on the same occasion. Although I suppose you might be nipping into a phone box and whirling round and coming out in a different coloured cassock, depending on how you're going to save the day on that particular occasion. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go on to make some comments about the things that you said in this video that you made on the occasion of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012. So you say, since the 16th century, every English monarch has been the supreme governor of the Church of England, which doesn't mean that the Queen or the King is the head of the Church of England. So what you're implying there is, oh, the monarch isn't the head of the Church of England. That's me. I'm in charge. It's me, it's me, it's me. And don't you dare say otherwise or I'll go away and sulk. Well, you don't explain, do you, why it's only since the 16th century that the English monarch has been the supreme governor of the Church of England. Because before the 16th century, if there was a supreme governor of the Church of England, then it was the Pope, wasn't it? And Henry VIII broke the Church in England away from the Roman Catholic Church because the Pope wouldn't annul his marriage and he wanted to marry someone else. It's a very famous story. So he declared himself Supreme Governor of the Church of England. So it's not really as if there was any ecclesiastical authority in England before that who was the Supreme Governor of the Church of England, and then it became the English monarch after that. So the supreme authority over the Church in England before the Reformation was the Pope, not somebody in England. So it wouldn't have been you anyway. You're really funny. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, because it's Christian teaching, so you've probably forgotten about it accidentally on purpose, but it's actually supposed to be Christ who's the head of the church, not the Archbishop of Canterbury. So I thought I could illustrate this by reading from St Paul's letter to the Colossians, chapter 1 verse 18, which is talking about Christ, and it says, He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he might come to have first place in everything. And then it says again in Colossians chapter 2 verse 10, and you have come to fullness in him who is the head of every ruler and authority. So it's not the Archbishop of Canterbury. Sorry to disappoint you. And then you also refer to the Queen having the title Defender of the Faith, which was actually a title given to Henry VIII by the Pope. He wasn't the only person given this title, but Henry VIII was given the title Defender of the Faith by the Pope. This was before he started the English Reformation, and ironically enough, he was given the title Defender of the Faith by the Pope for a treatise he wrote against some of the doctrines of the Protestant reformers in Europe. So he got the title Defender of the Faith for arguing against the Reformation, and then after that he started his own Reformation, broke the English Church away from the Roman Catholic Church, and declared himself Supreme Governor of the Church of England. Anyway, you also describe her as the senior layperson in the Church of England. This is what you say that the title Supreme Governor of the Church of England and Defender of the Faith means. That she's the senior layperson. Although you do say that all the final decisions rest with her, a bit like they do in the state affairs as well, because decisions made by Parliament are then ratified by the monarch. So I'm not entirely sure that senior layperson quite covers it. I think you might be understating the case a little there to try and bolster your own status. Senior layperson. That's one of your more hilarious statements, and you have made quite a lot as I've been commenting on them. So I'll play this clip now and I'll come back to say some more a bit later on.
We're celebrating this year 60 years of the Queen's reign. Since the 16th century, every English monarch has been Supreme Governor of the Church of England, which doesn't mean that the Queen or the King is the head of the Church of England. It simply means they're the final court of appeal. They're the person who makes the final decision about what the Church can do and can't do in law. One of the Queen's other titles is Defender of the Faith. We still see it on our coins, in Latin fidei defensor. It's tied up with the Queen's role as the senior layperson of the Church of England. Of perception, respect, really.
So you go on to say, I think she's reminded us that we in the United Kingdom are part of a worldwide fellowship. That's not the least of the lessons she's shared with us. So you're even using the occasion of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee to try and promote globalism. That's hilarious. And you go on to say, and again, the change that she's helped to happen from empire to commonwealth, and yet retaining that sense of fellowship and family between nations. Well, I don't know anyone who would argue that the British Empire was about a sense of fellowship and family between nations, because it seems more to be about exploiting the resources of foreign countries and foreign people and subjugating them, really, and imposing a kind of English rule over those areas, which in some cases was beneficial, but it was still imposed. I don't think you could describe it the British Empire and the spread of the British Empire as being about a sense of fellowship and family between nations. I don't think anybody would say that, I really don't. So, you're using this occasion to promote globalism, aren't you? That we're not allowed to be happy in our own country or region or wherever we are, whatever we're happy with ourselves. We have to be thinking about a fellowship and family between nations because we're all the same as each other, and this is how we should be thinking, and this is a way of promoting globalism, isn't it? And you'll use any excuse to promote globalism. And another point is that the places where the Anglican Communion exists, who you were head of as the Archbishop of Canterbury, that's in places where the British Empire went, because the British Empire went out to these foreign places in Africa and Asia and other places, and behind them went the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel, which later became the United Society for the Propagation of the Gospel, and has more recently changed its name to exclude Propagation of the Gospel. But anyway, this is how the Anglican Communion came to be in various parts of the world, because it followed the British Empire wherever it went. So the people that you're supposed to be so concerned about, the poor people in these various countries that you were visiting as Archbishop of Canterbury, were places that were previously part of the British Empire. So when you're talking about how we have to stop emitting carbon dioxide because all the people in the third world are going to drown and it'll all be our fault, the people you're actually talking about are former subjects of the British Empire, because you wouldn't have been going around to other places that weren't part of the British Empire, would you? Because the Anglican Communion didn't really go there. So I just think it's truly bizarre that you've described the transition from Empire to Commonwealth as retaining that sense of fellowship and family between nations. Anyway, you go on to say that you see the Queen privately once or twice a year. This was when you were Archbishop of Canterbury. The Queen sees the Archbishop of Canterbury privately once or twice a year. So I'm just wondering, with your political leanings, if you spent any time on these occasions talking about how your predecessors in the Bolshevik Revolution murdered her relatives. Did that ever come up on the agenda? I must say, we must all be really grateful how you managed to rise above your Bolshevik leanings in order to be fraternising with the upper echelons of British society, like the royal family and an old Etonian Prime Minister and so on. It must have been really hard for you. I bet you didn't like it at all. I bet you didn't like having all that social status and pouncing around on state occasions in fancy dress. I bet you hated it. So it was really good of you, on behalf of Anglicans particularly and the English in general, to be compromising your Bolshevik principles, to be fraternising at state banquets and so on with the royal family and old Etonian prime ministers and other world leaders and so on. So we're all very grateful for that. That you could compromise yourself to such an extent. Anyway, you go on to say about these meetings with the Queen. I've really valued those meetings because she's always extremely well informed about issues concerning the Church, extremely supportive and full of perception. Well, I don't know if you would have realised, being quite dumb as you are, that she's probably got advisors who know about church issues and other issues, about various countries around the world and about this country and so on, so that when the Archbishop of Canterbury comes to see her, some advisor has told her about what's going on, so that she knows the issues to talk about. And if a president of a foreign nation came to see her, then some advisor who knows a lot about that nation would have advised her beforehand, before she met this person, so that she'd know the issues to be talking about. Because probably it's quite difficult for one person to know absolutely everything that's going on in the world. So that's why politicians and other people and Archbishops of Canterbury have advisors who are experts in various fields, so that they can be informed before the relevant moment about what's going on, so hopefully they'd know what they were talking about. I mean, obviously it didn't work in your case, but generally it does seem to work, that people manage to present themselves without appearing like they're total idiots. So you go on to say, we've been extremely fortunate to have in this country as our head of state a person who has real personality, a personality that comes through more and more in her public utterances. It's quite surprising that a Bolshevik would think it was very fortunate to have a monarch as head of state, isn't it? That's really, really surprising, because you really like Stalin, don't you? So you would have really preferred Stalin as head of state, but if you can't have Stalin, failing that, then I suppose a monarch will do. So you're slumming it, having to put up with a monarchy when you could have had Stalin if things had worked out better. Anyway, I'm just going to read this bit again. She has a real personality, a personality that comes through more and more in her public utterances. Well, you could say the same about me, Rowan, couldn't you? I've got a real personality that comes through more and more in my public utterances. So why aren't you saying such nice things about me then? Is it because I can't have you thrown in the tower? So you really only cultivate people who are of political use to you, don't you? And you say nice things about them. And anyone who might be a threat to you, you get rid of if you possibly can. So you say also about her that she's someone with insight and judgment, and with immense stamina and a depth of commitment. So I've got insight and judgment and immense stamina and a depth of commitment as well. So that's some more nice things you haven't been saying about me, because I'm not politically useful to you. You just cultivate the people who will be useful to you. You cultivate and flatter people who will be useful to you. You're a sycophant, aren't you? Compromising your Bolshevik principles to be hobnobbing with the upper echelons of British society. We're so grateful that you could stoop so low. But I would just like to reiterate what you said at the beginning of this, that the Queen isn't the head of the Church of England, despite being the Supreme Governor and Defender of the Faith. She's the senior layperson. You're so funny. Anyway, I'm going to play some more clips now. But don't forget, I know where you're going to be on Tuesday in the Faculty of Divinity in Cambridge University, in the Runcie Room, giving another lecture. I've forgotten off the top of my head what this lecture's about. It was about Thomas Aquinas, the last one, wasn't it? Anyway, never mind, it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what you'll be talking about when I arrest you, does it? Because I didn't listen to the talk that you gave in Sheffield when I came to confront you there. And you were gaslighting because you were giving me long looks as I was sitting near the front to try and make out that you had some cause to be concerned about me, like I might do something crazy. And you wanted to obviously discredit me to the other people who were there. But it didn't work because I knew you were gaslighting, so I just pretended not to notice. But I did notice that you went absolutely white with fear when you saw me there, and then you nearly collapsed when I stood up to ask a question, the question and answer session at the end, and that's when I asked you if you found it a conflict of interest working for MI5. Being a 33rd degree Freemason and a Satanist, working for MI5, I meant MI6 actually, working for MI6 on Black Ops, such as the 9/11 false flag, and I mentioned that you'd lied about this story and gave an example of a lie that you'd told, and you said that you didn't lie. So you were lying when you said you didn't lie, because as I've said before, you can always trust liars, can't you, when they assure you that they're not lying. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now, but don't forget, be alert. Hasta la próxima.
The Church of England. I think she's reminded us that we in the United Kingdom are part of a worldwide fellowship. That's not the least of the lessons she's shared with us. And again, the change that she's helped to happen from empire to commonwealth, and yet retaining that sense of fellowship and family between nations. Part of the regular rhythm of life as Archbishop is that I see the Queen privately just one-to-one, perhaps once or twice a year. I've really valued those meetings because she's always extremely well informed about issues concerning the Church, extremely supportive and full of perception. I hadn't had any contact at all with royalty before coming into this job. I didn't know what to expect, really. I think we've been enormously fortunate in this country to have, as our head of state, a person who has a real personality, a personality that comes through more and more, I think, in her public utterances. Someone with insight and judgment, and with immense stamina, and a depth of commitment that I think is immensely impressive to all of us. And in living that out as our head of state, she has, I think, genuinely helped us as a society to keep our heads collectively, not to be panicked by change. She's very gently steered that cultural process in her own way, and I think we owe a very great debt to her for that and many other things. It used to be said, and perhaps it's still said, that if the Communist Party of Great Britain had had the geographical network and the resources that the Christian Church, and particularly the Church of England, has in these islands, we would have been a Stalinist dictatorship many years ago.
And to think you once dreamed you'd end up in the House of Lords.
What?
The House of Lords.
Of course, I'd forgotten about the House of Lords. I've got a plan so cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel.
I, Rowan Douglas, Archbishop of Canterbury, do swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God. He's got my rich.
Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of our other realms and territories, Queen, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith, to all lords spiritual and temporal, and all other our subjects whatsoever, to whom these presents shall come. Greeting. Know ye that we, of our especial grace, certain knowledge, and mere motion, in pursuance of the Life Peerages Act 1958, and of all other powers in that behalf us enabling, do by these presents advance, create, and confer our trusty and well-beloved Counsellor, the Right Reverend Rowan Williams, lately Archbishop of Canterbury, to the state, degree, style, dignity, title, and honour of Baron Williams of Oystermouth, in our city and county of Swansea. And for us, our heirs and successors, do appoint, give, and grant unto him the said name, state, degree, style, dignity, title, and honour of Baron Williams of Oystermouth, to have and to hold unto him for his life. Willing and by these presents granting for us, our heirs and successors, that he may have, hold, and possess a seat, place, and voice in the parliaments and public assemblies and councils of us, our heirs and successors, within our United Kingdom amongst the barons, and also that he may enjoy and use all the rights, privileges, preeminences, immunities, and advantages to the degree of a baron, duly and of right belonging, which barons of our United Kingdom have heretofore used and enjoyed, or as they do at present, use and enjoy. In witness whereof we have caused these our letters to be made patent, witness ourself at Westminster, the 8th day of January, in the 61st year of our reign, by warrant under the Queen's sign manual.
I, Rowan Lord Williams of Oystermouth, do swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Communism, as we understand it, has gone so unbelievably wrong, almost as much as Christianity.
You must understand. The leading Bolsheviks who took over Russia were not Russians. They hated Russians. They hated Christians. Driven by ethnic hatred, they tortured and slaughtered millions of Russians without a shred of human remorse. The October Revolution was not what you call in America the Russian Revolution. It was an invasion and conquest over the Russian people. More of my countrymen suffered horrific crimes at their blood-stained hands than any people or nation ever suffered in the entirety of human history. It cannot be understated. Bolshevism was the greatest human slaughter of all time. The fact that most of the world is ignorant of this reality is proof that the global media itself is in the hands of the perpetrators.
Now, all during the Cold War, when we were spending $250 billion a year on defense to protect us from the Soviet menace, the menace of world communism, the Soviet state was living entirely on largesse from the United States taxpayers, and a lot from Canada too. Canada was selling the Soviets wheat, because the Soviets and the Bolshevik Revolution, the Ukraine was the breadbasket of Europe. They had the most wonderful wheat, and they fed all of Europe from this Ukrainian breadbasket. Well, the communist leaders, being mostly intellectuals who had never been on a farm, and they had no idea where food came from, they decided to kill the peasants. In fact, the joke in Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution was, this is the workers' and peasants' party. They enslave the workers and kill the peasants. And that's why it's the Peasants and Workers' Party. So that's the story of communism. 1948,